Hello, hello, Elizabeth Batman, ma'am.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to see you.
Okay. So nice to see you after a very long time.
Yes, it has been a while.
Rupali ji, namaste.
Sir, namaste. How are you?
Hello, Elspeth. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
I'm very fine.
Namaste.
Namaste. Hello, Irina.
How many are there? Okay. Edina, ma'am, and Jagdishwaran, sir. Okay. So nice to see you after a very long time, all of you. And we will start the session, I think, on time. And we just wait for our Vice Chancellor and Jigyasu Dubey, sir. If sir has joined.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Martin.
Hello.
Hi, Martin.
Hello.
Hi, Hideo.
How are you?
Thank tired. I'm overworked as usual.
Overworked.
And how are you?
Yeah, sounds good. The cherry blossom blooming. Yeah.
I know. I wanted to join you for the JASX Spring Conference with Willy, but unfortunately, in the moment that it's very hard to get from Europe to Asia.
Yeah.
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 So I had to cancel the plans to go to Japan, which I'm very sorry. Maybe for the autumn conference would be better.
I see. Hi, everyone.
But Willy will be representing us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Sebastian coming. Yeah.
Yes. I was actually running from another game session that I was facilitating into this.
Hello, sir.
Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
Hi.
Nice to see you all.
On time, Sebastian. Okay, so shall we start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible, sir? Okay. I, Bharti Ahuja from Sri Vaishnav Institute of Information Technology at Computer Science and Engineering Department, warmly welcome you all, dignitaries, respected faculty members, and dear participants to today's webinar organized by Sri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya Indore under the Center of Excellence in Simulation and Gaming. Pratiti begins with the vision of becoming aware to promote simulation and gaming as innovative tools for learning, research, and social development. The initiative aims to create global platform where educators and researchers come together to share ideas and application of simulations and gaming across disciplines. Since Pratiti has hosted 68 webinars featuring 60 plus eminent speakers from different 17 countries across 4 continents. Speakers have included academicians, game designers, researchers, and industry experts from countries like Netherlands, Japan, India, USA, UK, and many more. And today, as a part of this first webinar of season 2026, we continue this journey with another insightful session. Theme for this session is defining Scientific Foundation of Gaming and Simulation Towards Game Science. This session will highlight how simulation and gaming's interventions can bring changes in educational and organizational settings. With this now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker, Professor Sebastian Measure. He is full professor of healthcare logistics at KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Sweden, and served as a vice dean and head of Department of Biomedical Engineering and Health System. He has been associated with international simulations and gaming associations for over 12 years as a member of executive board. With experience since the late 1990s, his work focuses on gaming, simulation, and scientific methods, design, decision making in complex system, behavior, and knowledge through simulation. In this session, Professor Sebastian will explore ontological and epistemological point of view, practical example of simulation, and many gaming and designings. Now, I would like to request Professor Sebastian Measure to kindly begin his session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and really nice to be back again. Really lovely that this webinar series continues. When I was asked, like, hey, would you be, sharing is not turned on. Please allow me to share my slides.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to allow me to share the slides?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. There we go. First of all, I would like to show you this. This is the paper that this entire lecture is based upon. And this was the result of a ISAGA special interest group on game science. I will speak more about that. But I believe most of you have access to IEEE Explore. If not, just email me and I'll send you the PDF. But I'll provide you the link here in the chat so that everyone can have a look for themselves as well. With that being said, I have a couple of slides. Here we go. This is joint work of myself as well as Heide Lukos, Marieke de Wijse, and Jan Klabbers. And it was Jan who took the initiative to this group. He thought that it was essential to keep continuing discussing the scientific foundation. So why do we do this study? All of us are aware that gaming and simulation, that it's a fantastic tool in practice. But what we also can see is that the scientific foundation is a little bit shaky sometimes. Papers do not get the same level of attention. It is difficult to sometimes get your papers published in Nature and Science and that type of higher level of academic publishing. And what we also observe is that there are very few people who really can build an academic career beyond the level of assistant or associate professor, while sticking with gaming and simulation as their main method. And all of that points at a problem. And that problem we now try to address in this work. At the same time, you can't say that there is no scientific foundation for simulation and gaming because, for instance, the managing of the simulation and gaming lifecycle and debriefing, collecting data, creating meaning have fantastic progress the past 10 years in its scientific foundations. So there's definitely a lot of good stuff ongoing, but it fails to aggregate at the epistemic scientific level. That is why we started. And then you think like, okay, this is difficult. Yes, it was very difficult. So it took a couple of years actually. And I guess all of you are aware of ISAGA. It's an old club. It's actually the 57th annual conference that I'm organizing this year in Stockholm, not this 58, but you're very welcome in Stockholm this year. But particularly the special interest group, we started 2022. Jan Klabbers acted as convener, and maybe you're aware of the special issue he did in the Journal of Simulation and Gaming a couple of years before, where already a lot of the papers went into particularly the transfer between reality and the system science aspect of it. So he thought that the work wasn't finished, and we quickly found out that the work wasn't finished. And that is why we did an open call. Several people joined in the beginning, and in the end, there were these 4 people working together. And sometimes we reached out on several parts in the ISAGA community. Some of you might question, why is this paper published in IEEE instead of Simulation and Gaming? Now, I don't know whether any of the reviewers that were involved in this paper review are actually here. But after the 3rd review round, with all of the time new reviewers, the journal rejected the paper because it took too many review rounds. Yes, Elizabeth, you're laughing, I hear.
In sympathy,
but
in sympathy.
Yes, but it was rather painful, actually.
Mm.
That's, well, the journal that publishes most of the heavier theoretical work in this domain doesn't want the heavier theoretical work in the domain. So yeah, we had to, then I was invited to provide an invited paper for the WinterSim simulation series, and there we sent it in. And after 1 review round, it was accepted there. So I went to Seattle, had a good discussion, and now it's online and we can discuss further in our community. If we say scientific foundations, what do we actually mean? And here, a little bit inspired by, so to say, IT thinking, you need to have a full stack definition. Let's go back to the Oxford Dictionary. Science is the systemic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained. Which means that humans in this definition are included in the natural world, so just like apes. Obviously, there are different sciences. We have social sciences, we have natural sciences. But still this definition holds true. There is the observation, the experimentation and testing of theories against the evidence obtained. But to do this, you actually not just need to have methodology, which is the level where we're extremely good in the simulation and gaming domain, I would say. But you also need theory. And here the domain already gets more splintered and diverse. But you can't actually really pinpoint yourself in the theoretical domain if you don't specify your epistemology and your ontological levels. So what is there to know? How can we know things? What do we even recognize as realities to accept? Those are the higher philosophical orders that we usually do not talk about. Maybe some of you know that I've worked in the public transport domain for 6-7 years. A little bit longer, actually, 10 years almost. And in that domain, people never talk about ontology and epistemology. they really talk about methodology and continuously develop the methodology. And once you start asking, like, but what is this actually based upon? People get nervous because this is how very different communities are actually defined themselves, and we all accept something within this community. Gaming is different here. So how did we work? There was a dialogue. That dialogue continued for 12 months. If you think like, well, then you've been talking slowly. Yes, it took a lot of reflection actually to be able to do this. We constructed, after these 12 months, 10 statements, and the members of the special interest group could all accept these 10 statements to be true for gaming and simulation. This helped dramatically, because if we can accept these 10 statements, then we can explain why we accept them, and we can try to relate this to, let's say, existing scientific frameworks. Out of these 10 statements, 5 statements related to the scientific nature. So those statements we selected for this particular paper. The other statements made it into other papers, which are now actually published or on the verge of being published in simulation and gaming. But those were more into the methodology, learning, construction, which are a little bit more the regular topics that we deal with. So it was this particular paper that was the most strange, so to say. Here, I will present you the statements that we included for this paper. And these are the short versions. In the paper, you can read the longer text. But games consist of interconnected actors, rules, and resources. That we believe is generally true for all games in the concept of simulation and gaming. If you accept that, then we also accept that actors actually have agency. This is a difference between our participants and people who participate in, for instance, a behavioral choice experiment. Do you want the mug or the pen? There, people do not really have agency. They just need to answer the question, behavioral preferences. Gaming and simulation looks at people that actually have the reach to make choices, to decide for themselves, and who can also use rules as guiding principles on how to play the game. Resources are usually representing infrastructure from society. So either physical or constructed components that we represent. If you can accept this statement, then the practical implication of this is that every game description needs to include the dimensions: actors, rules, and resources. And then we were actually going back into the scientific literature. We just took a sample of 50 different game papers and could rather quickly identify that all of those papers would be much more comparable and recognizable if we could just describe all our games with what are the actors, what are the rules, and what are the resources. Would help dramatically. Then you can actually make games comparable. Statement number 2 is that games have a meaning, and this meaning is expressed in constructs. What does this mean? When we design a game, we design an action space, and that action space allows for making choices, and those choices are meaningful. They relate to what the people, the actors in the game actually know, what they have an opinion about, what they have a relation to. And because they have agency, that's on statement 1, they also have a range of actions that they can do. With that, we say on top of the actors' rules and resources, it would be very good if everyone could could describe their constructs and symbols used Because a game that you do digitally on a computer in a modern environment is not the same game, even though it has the same actors, rules, and resources that you would do in an analog fashion. The constructs and symbols will be different, the media will be different, and that needs to be described. It also means that it is the combination of the game and the players that makes for the unique game session. And the game session then becomes valuable. So if you don't describe the players in combination with the game, you haven't described something. Now, in our community, we're rather good at describing the players. We're not so good actually at describing the game, strangely enough. Next to statement 3 is that we say play happens in games. Is this the same? No, because play is subjectively grounded in the player, and a game is actually objectively grounded in the game rules, resources. So it is a combination of the player with its subjective parts, with the game as the objective parts of a description. So yes, this builds again on statement 2. You will see that all the statements build upon each other. And if you feel like, yes, but all of these are things that we can accept, then we did a good job. So, but it has practical implications. Because how do we capture play? Do we describe this? Again, we took this sample 50 papers. We looked at those papers, at least I did. And what you see is that the play element is usually neglected. We present very often our studies as a social sciences experiment. This is the game. These were the participants, the study subjects. This is the statistics of the behavior that we observed. But we did not capture how the meaning was created. And this is also difficult because this requires qualitative methods in connection to quantitative methods. And we observe that more and more papers are moving towards a social sciences, simple statistics type of evaluation to prove, for instance, the learning function or that it was a good game. Statement number 4. For those of you who know me, you will recognize this one, as well as the discussions that Jan Klabbers has had over his entire career. Games support both the design sciences and the analytical sciences. But they do this in a very different way. When we look at games from a design science perspective, it focuses on the human action in the context. Why do people do this? What does it mean? Whereas if we look at the analytical sciences, then we actually try to study why do they do this independent of the context. We try to look at generalizable behavior to, for instance, discover sociological rules or tendencies in behavior. Then again, if we then look at the scientific 50 papers that are used as a reference, what you see is that we are very, very sloppy in describing, is this part of the paper actually design science or analytical science grounded? And because of the attractiveness of the analytical sciences, this tends to become a little bit more dominant. So there's a lot of statistics and things described as if the behavior in the game is also true for any generalizable behavior outside of the game, outside of that particular context. That doesn't necessarily need to be so. And if you don't address these explicit scientific assumptions, then you have a problem. That it reduces the value of the scientific study. Now, the last statement, statement number 5, games are succinct abstractions from the real-world reference. And this builds a lot on Jan Klabber's definitions of design in the small, which is the design of the game itself, versus design in the large, the organizational design. If we can accept that games are abstractions from a system that we try to simulate, then the game becomes, per definition, a simulation exercise. There are also games that are not simulation exercises, definitely. But in our domain, we very often use the game as some type of reference. But the practical implication is that you need to document both how we represent the real-world reference in the game, but you also need to describe which parts of the real-world reference are not represented in the game. If you don't document both together, it becomes a simulation that is only described for itself and not in relation to the system that it actually tries to simulate. So if we do that better, we would have a much better scientific rigor in our studies. And when we synthesize these 5 statements, what became very clear is that we actually deal with a dual position in our games. Whereas most sciences are dealing with a monolithic position. So either you're the observer, the researcher outside, and there are people inside your experiments, those are the participants or the study subjects. But we, as gamers, we also participate in the actual game. We steer, we facilitate in directions, we make decisions on when something is going to happen. We participate as designer, as facilitator, as debriefer. And particularly on debriefing, there's been a lot of texts lately, studies on how to do this in a systematic fashion. That is also very good because it provides a ground to stand on for how to do this. But scientifically, this feature of being both an inside participant and an outside observer is really, really unique. We did not find any other sciences or scientific domains where the same position is true. And it means that we work both with thinking fast, thinking slow. You might know that reference. But we work both with what is called system 1 thinking, the tacit knowing, as well as with the system 2, the explicit reasoning. And we do that both inside and outside the experiment. Now, with these statements, we try to work out, like, how should we structure this as a science? And then we started looking for other guides to sciences, and particularly found a lot of social science and analytical science, or social science, natural science crossovers. Particularly in the environmental sciences, there were some interesting papers. But no real structure really helped us further because we could not merge our truth into this. Until I found this excellent paper by Moon and Blackman, a guide to understanding social science research for natural scientists, which is a very helpful way of thinking about it. And this particular paper structured the social sciences field in the level of ontology, epistemology, theoretical perspective, and then also methodological perspective. And now we limited their guides and extended their guide in some parts to be true for game science, we believe. This picture is way too small, so the next parts are showing the same picture, but then parts of it. We propose that at the ontological level, there are two ontologies that are relevant for game science. Version 1, critical realism, which is there could be one reality, but it needs a very broad critical examination to get in all perspectives. The other ontology that works is bounded relativism. It's not all relativist. But it's also impossible to know that there is one world or one shared understanding, because the mental constructions of reality, they do not have a particular hierarchy or so. It's not that one is always better than the other. Mental constructions can coexist. Under these two ontological stances, we observed 3 epistemological stances that can be accepted within game science. One is constructionism, because that creates meaning from the interplay between the subject and the object, which is very similar to statement 1 and statement 2. We can look through the lens of subjectivism. It is only the subject that determines what the meaning is. We need to study through the eyes of our subjects, our participants. And then an extension is this modes of thinking, Kahneman, Tversky. Because the modes of thinking is a more cognitive way of describing how people act in particular social experiments. So these 3 epistemological stances work for game sciences. At the theoretical perspective, we limited ourselves to 2 subcategories. One is what we call the purpose-based perspective. There we use games for a particular goal. And here we have the design science or the analytical science perspective, theoretically. So you can either enhance change, or you can develop and test theories. The other theoretical perspective is the understanding-based perspectives. And this is where you have what Klabbers calls phases of knowing, which is more of what we could call sense-making perspective on the world. Can we study through the eyes of these participants the different parts of the world that they perceive? For instance, the social organization, their assertions, or we can also look at how media of representation actually affect how the participants perceive the world around them in the game. Now, the last level is the methodological level. This we do not discuss. We're limited by 12 pages, very practically. But this is also the domain where already a lot of literature in gaming and simulation exists. And this is some work to do as future work to connect these methodologies to the higher theoretical, epistemological, and ontological levels. Conclusion: we pose in this paper that a unique game science exists, that we can position game science as a unique combination of ontological, epistemological, and theoretical levels with its own methodology. There are 2 types of ontological stance that can work. There are 3 types of epistemology. And very important is that the participants co-construct reality through the interplay with each other and with the resources. Thereby, we believe from all the work that we did, that game science differs in its nature from the natural and social sciences. It is a third type. And if we can refer to that type and be structured in how we describe it in our papers, I believe that our scientific domain will actually get a lot more recognition and will be more acceptable, instead of trying to fit ourselves into the natural and social sciences. Some recommendations. I say to my PhD students, you now need to really describe your ontological and epistemological stances in every paper. And they start doing that, much to their detest, but I force them. We also need to test this guide. We pose it as a hypothesis. We believe there's a certain truth to it, but it can definitely be improved, refined, adjusted already now, because I don't believe that we were perfect, but also when the domain further develops. There are also other related simulation approaches, for instance, participatory model building, exploratory simulation. This was interesting when I was at this WinterSim conference where I presented the paper, that the people who do these types of simulation and modeling actually were interested in the methodology here. And there are two articles. One has already been published, and that is on the role of the facilitator, described in the same terms. And there's one forthcoming on the media of representation in game science. Thank you very much. Lastly, I want to make a little bit of a advertisement for the conference that we're having. It will be the week after Midsummer here in Sweden, which is the last week of June. You're very, very welcome to join. And what we try to do is to have this conference to both have the traditional papers and workshops that we always have at the SAGA conferences, but also a lot more discussion about these scientific foundations of our domain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your highly insightful and enriching session. We are now open the floor for the question and answer session. Participants are encouraged to post their question in chat box. Any questions?
Panel member may ask directly. Don't need to write in chat box.
And not that many people.
Can I ask a quick question? I really have to commend you on your very thoughtful presentation there, Sebastian. Excellent. It made me think, and I just have a question for you. You focus on ontology and epistemology, and I know when we apply modeling and simulation in a human cognition perspective, we actually, I think, go a bit further. So from an epistemology perspective, it's about how we create knowledge. I don't know whether you're familiar with in cognition and Russell Lakoff in particular and systems thinking, and he talks about how we go from information, knowledge, and then through understanding into wisdom. And
framework, yes.
Yeah. So I do believe, right, that what we do in gaming is we are going one step further, right? It's actually facilitating a step through understanding in the game to transfer that knowledge that we learn in universities and classrooms into wisdom, and that's something that we typically do experientially in life, and this is what gaming comes in and now provides a means to that end that might allow us to learn things in a different way, more efficiently, more effectively, in contexts that we perhaps could never achieve in real life. So just wanted to, if you had any thoughts on that.
First of all, thanks for the question. I believe you're right. I don't believe that we actually go one step further than the ACO framework, because what is beyond wisdom? But I believe that gaming and simulation particularly facilitates this journey in a way that many other methods cannot. And it's this facilitation that has a scientific ground beyond the regular learning. Regular learning, like classroom learning, evaluation, it can be the right frame if you want to use this for undergrads, math teaching, for instance, but not for the things where we traditionally are good at, for instance, complex thinking, complex systems. I see that you have the INCOSE logo behind you. So there is the systems engineering fault to this. What we try to be very precise with in the paper is to not take any of these application domains as unique. What we took as unique is simulation and gaming as a discipline in the tradition of ISAGA.
Thank you. Excellent.
Elizabeth, yeah.
I was just wondering what kinds of opposition, if any, you've been getting to the paper. You know, has anybody popped up and said, no, it's nonsense, or, you know, picked holes in it? I'm curious.
Well, the reviewing process was painful.
Right.
So basically, since it's published, the criticism we get is actually not criticism, but constructive criticism, in the sense that how unique is this for only gaming? Could it also cover other participatory methods that are in the design thinking corner, etc.? And my answer to that is test it. Maybe we should call it something else. So we're open to that. While getting this published, the criticism came from all sides. And what was of interest is to see that the people that do game studies, studying play and gaming, they thought that the systems type of thinking was entirely off. Whereas the people that very clearly came from a systems perspective, they thought that this rigor about positions and knowledge, that was nonsense.
Oh,
we were
walking between two camps makes it very difficult.
Yes, that was basically the experience, if I summarize. And that also then, I mean, if you write papers like this, you should not expect any easy path forward. It took years to get this forward. And sometimes Jan was emailing like, why are you not coming back with any reaction? And then I was like, because I need to think. It's actually hard.
Yes. No, I can see that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're happy that we put this egg out, and now let's see whether the baby can grow.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from panelists or attendees? Okay. So we move ahead. Feedback link is provided in the chat box. Kindly fill the feedback link. To formally conclude this session now.
Thank you, Bharti. Okay, yes, I request all the participants to please fill the feedback form to get the certificate. Okay, and my heartful thank to Sebastian Major. I know he is very busy today and he's sparing time for us and very short notice. So I'm very thankful to you. And I'm also thankful to Dr. League. It is very late for her, but she's attending all the webinars of this series. So I'm very much thankful to him. And also he make all the webinar very interactive. If no one is asking question, he is there for discussion. So thank you, Dr. Lake, for being with us. I'm thankful to Dr. David, Dr. Kanige, Dr. Jawahar ji, Dr. Jega, Dr. Ramesh ji, and Irina, Dr. Saurabh. I think I take all the name. If anyone remembers, sorry for that. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Bharti, for hosting today's webinar. I'm thankful to my technical team for their support. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And request everyone to join our next webinar. We announce very soon who will be the next speaker as we finalize that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, joining us.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
With that, we officially conclude today's session of Pratiti webinar series session 2026. Before we close, a gentle reminder to all the participants, please fill out feedback link shared in the chat box. Your feedback is valuable for us for completing. The form is also mandatory for receiving your e-certificate for the participation. We look forward your presence in upcoming webinars of this series. Stay connected, stay inspired, and continue to explore the power of simulation and gaming. Wishing you all a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Sebastian. Thank you, sir. Good
Thank
day.
you, Bharti. Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am.
Sebastian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Good night.
And